All right. Welcome to the online content for week two. I'm just getting started here. Let's go ahead and share. All right. Hi. Now, just to let you know, you don't have to have the video on. Just FYI, especially since I'm recording it. So it's up to you. Yeah, don't worry about it. Because what I do is when I'm recording, I hide, and when I'm on share screen, I hide the non-video participants.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but you can always chat. You can always turn on your mic, and then you can always message me in the chat as well.
Got
So,
it.
but yeah, okay. Yeah. So we'll get started. Just a reminder of a couple quick things. This is the Zoom option, which is that you can join me while I'm recording it for tonight. Online only is always going to be posted, which is this video will be posted tonight after it gets converted. Let's see what else is there. I said in the syllabus video, but I'll say it again and I'll say it in class. Get some 4x6 index cards for your notes. We don't memorize our speeches in this class. We use 4x6 notes. I will actually bring a pack or two the class on Thursday. And as always, Thursday is the required class. For those who missed last Thursday and sent me a reason why, you need to show up this Thursday to stay in the class. There you go. All right, let's get started. We were here last time. We covered this stuff here. Let me just click on this so I can go through this. We stopped on this clip, this slide last time. By the way, this video today we're going to cover more chapters, and then we're going to also cover the uh, the rest of the outline as well. But I'm going to start with some chapters. This chapter, though, is going to be saved for Thursday in class because we did the terms already. But the little sections we have a discussion that we do, and yeah, I just think it's kind of silly to have it with so few students. So we'll have that discussion in class on Thursday. So I'll skip by this. And also, I don't want to be recorded talking about Joe Rogan. I don't want to because that's I use him as an example for a discussion about the ethics and so forth. So I don't want to someone posts, shares it and says he's attacking our savior. Oh well, anyways, they're gonna share that part. I'll get in trouble that way or get annoyed, I should say. All right, let's get started. We'll go on chapter five. Chapter five is about listening. At the very first chapter on speech to public speaking as a term, it says that not only is your delivery, but you have to be a good listener, a critical listener. And so this is part of it. So yeah, so chapter five is on listening. You are tested on your listening ability with the evaluations you have to do for students. So yeah, we have listening actually. Oh, by the way, if you know, I'm wearing my Groku Baby Yoda shirt today is because I had speeches in other classes. I tend to wear the cuter shirts on speech days, the kind of, especially since I'm the most military. My military background really shows on speech days. Let's see. So let me make sure. Am I recording correctly? Yes, I am. Okay. Let's see. All right. So we'll go back. Working. Okay. So here we go. Working memory theory of listening. This is not on a test, but you need to know this. It's very important. So there are studies and theories that show and demonstrate and been proven that we have a limited amount of time for us to pay attention to things, especially when it comes to things like lecture and so forth. We have about, let's say, roughly around an hour. It matters how tense the information is. And so as my physics teacher said in high school, the elevator will reach the top level. Your glass will be full. You can't take any more water in, and so forth. Your eyes get dilated, stuff like that. And so, as listeners, we have a certain limit, and that's important to know as a public speaker. All right. And so, like, for example, these night classes that we take, we're going to take a break. Even this recording I'm doing, we're going to take a break because it should, the recording only should, the Zoom meeting should only last like 2 hours, unlike the class, which is like 3 hours. But we take a break because after an hour, it's just too much. Um, I don't, I don't know if anyone in the class was at a high school that had block scheduling. I don't know when block scheduling became, it's widespread everywhere in LA Unified now. In the chat, did any of you happen to, or do you know what I'm talking about with block scheduling? Just say yes if you know what I'm talking about in the chat, or you can unmute and just say yes if you know. See, oh yeah, see, there you go. Yeah, so block scheduling, it's the latest stupid trend. I'm gonna be honest, it's a stupid trend, it's a horrible trend, where they are having students, instead of doing all their classes all in one day, they're only having to do 3 or 4 a day and so forth. That's absolutely horrible. I've been in those classrooms. Students elevator get to the top floor. Their glass is full. And so, when you're talking about trying to get students to get off their cell phone, it's a lot harder, especially when they're in the hour and a half, 2 hour classes. Those are horrible things. Students do worse in block scheduling schools. I can't say this enough. If you're a parent, if you hear my voice and your kid has block scheduling, do your darndest to cause grief and so forth. It's a horrible. The schools that have traditional schedules, those students tend to do much better. So yeah, and that's what you need to know about listening as a speaker. That we have a certain time limit, we have a certain amount that we could take in. So that's why that's at the very first term. Okay. All right, let's go over these other terms, and I will do what I normally do, which is hint, hint, nudge, nudge on the important stuff for tests. So, like prejudice is not on the test, but you should know it. When you think of public speaking, we think of common things with prejudice, racism and sexism and so forth, and prejudice against whatever group. But in public speaking, it's also messages and information as well. You might have an uncle or somebody who only takes in information from sources that they like because they tell them things they want to hear, right? That's the problem with modern media, by the way, is that we have too many sites that news organizations that would just make people feel good instead of, change the message a little bit so it doesn't sound as bad, so forth. So you can tell by how they're covering the Iran situation right now. If you want to know who does that, because that's just pure chaos over there. What's going on? So prejudice is not just traditional prejudice in public speaking; it's also prejudice in message, content, and so forth. Listening styles. There's 4 of them. We'll cover them later, so don't worry about that. Let me admit somebody real quick. Right. So there's 4 listening styles. We'll cover it. That will be on the test, but what's on the test will be covered later. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge on the next 2. Critical listening, critical thinking. All right. I'm thinking about my book right now because but I know the definitions. So critical listening is when you take in all the information. That's the best way to remember that. When you take in all the information, and it's not just it's a lot. Of course, it's verbal, but you're taking in all the content. Oh, that includes nonverbal as well. So you're taking in all the information, numbers, reasoning, explanation, description, everything. You're taking in everything, and then you're thinking about it. You're processing it as you're taking it in. Then critical thinking is when you start processing all that stuff and you make judgments. And you also think about what was said, how it was said, and so forth. So you have 2, again, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, testable terms right there. And it's important for you to understand that. If you're a good listener, not only are you a critical listener taking in all the information, even from sources you don't like, but you also do critical thinking, which is process that information and make good judgments and so forth. All right, very important terms. Facts are exactly what they are, and I say they tend to be concrete in nature. that you can point to it and say, okay, this is a fact that this wasn't done because the mess is still there, right? That's the thing. If you think about your parents, for example, if they say, we know you didn't do your chores, how do you know that? What's a fact? We can point at the trash can that you didn't take out. It's right over there, right? That's a fact, and I always say facts are physical in nature. There's something you can point out, or there's a hard number and things like that. Um, and by the way, and that I'd say that because of in public speaking. Inference is very important because, and it's very important for persuasion. Inference is when you have a couple facts or things that you put together to infer something to occur, right? In the chat, give me a yes or a thumbs up if you ever had a parent accuse you of being up to no good. You can say yes if you want to get unmute yourself. It's a very common thing. Anyone ever had a parent accuse them of being up to no good? Let's see. All right, we got some yeses. We got some yeses. All right, or some reactions as well. There you go. And that's a good example. Now, those people who said yes, how many were actually up to no good? Right, right. And so the reason why, because you're maybe as a kid or as a teen, hey, what's up? Um, as a kid or as a teen, you're probably going, how do they know? Well, they make inference. So the example I give is like, let's say you're up to no good out there out on the street, and you come home, and they catch you trying to come in, and there's a couple facts that you can't dispute, right? One, you're coming in past curfew, right? When you were a teen and you had a curfew, you're coming in past curfew, right? Two, you're trying to sneak in, right? You took your shoes off, and you're trying to sneak in, or they caught you going through a window. Fun fact about I've been teaching this class for years, and I've been using this example for years. Fun fact: most of the people who say they've been caught going through a window have been my female students. Male students will just go right into the door, but the ones sneaking in through the windows, I just recently just thought about that. But anyways, two, they caught you trying to sneak in, right? Three, three, you had that stupid smile on your face when they caught you. You're like you're coming back, and you're like, right? And so that is inference because they don't know what you were doing out there, but obviously you're breaking curfew, you're trying to sneak in, and you have a stupid smile on your face. They can infer that you were up to no good. See how that works? Right? That's it. I'm stopping on this one and focusing on it because this is very important for persuasion. Because you infer when you persuade somebody out. Like when you ask somebody out on a date, they don't know that it's not a fact that you guys will have a good time, but you infer it by saying, "Oh yeah, we hit it off. We're great. There's this nice new restaurant we'll try out, and there's this lovely walk we can take afterwards." Those all might be facts right there, but it's inferred that you guys will have a great time before you do it. That's inference. That's what it does, right? That's why it's important for persuasion. Evidence is evidence. We'll talk about that more later, but it's all the stuff that you present. So it's not just the facts; it's also testimony. It's all that stuff put together, right? Um, by the way, if you have questions, there's a raise hand reaction or raise hand option, and then also you can ask questions in chat. Just FYI. Let's see. We also have examples. Examples are, what things that have occurred, right? If you're talking about some event or so forth. I've been talking to my colleagues about a situation I had at high school on Friday where I overheard some teenage girls talking about guys they're talking up, and the conversation was disturbing to me because everything they said indicated that the guys were over it, were over 18, and these were freshman girls, and and they didn't say anything where I can go as mandatory reporter. I did talk to a colleague I talked to somebody at the high school, but it was just it. So when I talk about the situations that public school teachers find themselves in this current environment, I can use that now as an example. See how that works? That's an example. By the way, I shared that example because I really need to get that off. Like I've been that. Um, yeah, that was no bueno. All right, so examples, right? When you use example, and of course examples from articles, research, and so forth. Opinion. There's two kinds of opinions, but the main two are, of course, is expert opinion and then everyday person kind of opinion. If it's a witness to an event, they're an everyday person. They're not an expert. Because even an expert who happened to see the event, they can still consider an everyday person because in that moment, there's some kind of like their their human, their non-expert sides kick in as well. You know what I mean? If there's an expert on crime and he witnesses a crime, sometimes the other parts of him will come out and affect how he witnessed that crime, right? He might be affluent and not understand certain things or have experience, or he might be the opposite and have a background. So that's where opinion. There's two kinds. Statistics, numbers, that's pretty simple. Numbers, 7 out of 10, 80%, stuff like that. That's the numbers. And finally, rhetorical criticism. It's when you as a listener, everything. When you make an argument, when you speech, historically, it's called rhetoric. And so when you do a rhetorical criticism, it's you applying your critical listening, critical thinking skills to the rhetoric you hear. I wonder if this little pop-up is going to show on my screen or everything. Oh well. I have a computer here that has some licensing, and I'm not updating it because I don't want to lose some licensing on my program. Okay. All right, so rhetorical criticism. That's what it is when you use your judgment. Any questions on the terms? Any questions on the terms? And if you're watching this online, obviously, wait till we meet on Thursday, and if you have questions on this stuff. The two most important for the test are critical listening and critical thinking. All right. So to understand listening and the importance of it, your book covers listening barriers, right? And the best way to understand listening barriers is to talk about some. So in the chat, or if you want to unmute and let me know, what are some listening barriers that you experience when it comes to like family and friends? So, I bet you everyone in this on this Zoom call has at least one family or friend who's a bad listener. What do they do? In fact, if you want to share, unmute and share, identify yourself first. By the way, you don't have to turn on your video, but you can just identify yourself first, and then that way I'm prepared to hear. So what do they do? And by the way, you don't have to name names. All right. Oh wait.
This is David.
Oh
So
yeah.
I would say, would it be like when they just like looking at their phone, like you're trying to talk to them, like kind of ignoring you? When they
Wait.
say they're not
I'm
ignoring
sorry.
you, but
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What was that?
I said it would be like something like when you're trying to talk to somebody and they're like paying attention to their phone and
What?
they're not. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just reading this. Who's next? Who's next?
Oh, you were doing it like that?
Joanne, would you like to share that one out loud if you want to unmute?
Oh, yeah. So like you're talking or you're
Yeah,
talking something.
yeah. Go ahead. Go say what you're gonna say.
Oh, okay. So you're talking and they're just
I'm
talking.
sorry. What was that?
Oh, okay. Exactly what you're doing now.
Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. Maybe next time, if you maybe take a chance to talk. All right, all right. And then I have no idea what Monique is saying in the chat. I don't know what that is. What was that, Monique? What was that? And for those who don't know, Monique said make no eye contact. They don't make eye contact, which, by the way, is usually a tell online. Just FYI. Yeah. So yeah, if you guys haven't figured it out, yes, I was demonstrating the bad listening techniques to you folks, so that way you can see it firsthand. I, by the way, when you're talking cell phone, I was like, oh my god, where's my cell phone? So I can act it out. But then I was like, oh, I got this little book. This is, by the way, this is my stand-up book. This is not my writing, but this is when I produce shows. There's all the comedians' names in there. All right, so yeah, so that's the best way. And then the obvious best way for you to understand listening barriers is to diagnose yourself. So I'll give you a moment to think about it. Usually I have people partner up, but we're on a Zoom. Just think about it for a few seconds. What is your listening barriers? Don't worry, I'm not gonna demonstrate it because this is you sharing, and so I'm not gonna be doing that. I swear, I promise. But diagnose your own. So while you're doing that, I'll tell you mine. I'm impatient when it comes to listening to people I'm very close to, like family, especially. No, no, I'm already like 2, 3 steps ahead of them already, and at some point I'm like, okay, get to the point, and it's just, I think it might just be the personal, your personal prejudices kick in, but with my family, I have no patience when they talk, and so yeah, that's my listening barrier. I have to watch myself when it comes to that stuff. So anybody like to share in the chat out loud, maybe what you consider a listening barrier for yourself? Sharing is caring.
Hi, this is Audrey. I would say probably like zooming, like kind of like just like blank stare sometimes because I kind of like mute them out a little bit.
There you go. Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah, someone in the chat. So you're already you're giving that blank stare and making no commitment. That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah.
And someone in the chat, thank you for sharing, by the way. In the chat, somebody said thinking about all my unfinished tasks. Yeah, that is what you're distracted by your inner thoughts. I think that's a part of my problem as well, the way my brain works. Anybody else would like to share? Uh, what is your listening barrier? Anybody? Anybody else? Yeah, so and that's the thing. Um, that's the thing. You just have to understand the listening barriers, and getting over them is to understand yourself first and so forth. Because one thing that people do is when it comes to listening, they judge other people and they don't judge themselves. And I think the best way to understand a barrier is to judge yourself first and then move it to others. And by the way, it's great to understand barriers because if you know someone has a listening barrier, you can try to work around it, right? And try to work around it. I get in trouble sometimes because I snap my fingers at the public schools, but you can't understand how much the students are on their cell phones in these public schools now. And it's so I do something drastic like this, and some of them get mad, but it snaps the phone users off while I'm trying to get their attention. I don't do it in front of their faces. I don't do this. That would be horrible. I just so yes, understand yourself. All right. So in the book, we'll move on. There's 4 listening styles. It means that when it comes to listening, you tend to gravitate towards one of these 4. Now we could be a mix of these, and it actually is good if you're a mix of all, but we tend to tilt towards a certain thing. So let me give you the 4 things. And by the way, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. These are definitely going to be on the test. All right. So the very first one is called relational orientated. All right. So make sure you write that in your notes. Relational orientated. These, as a listener, you tend to listen more if the message is talking about feelings and emotions. So relational orientated, you tend to gravitate as a listener towards feelings and emotions. Those are the two key words, right? Emotions and feelings. Task orientated, these are people that are listeners that tend to listen more if there's actions involved. I always say that task orientated people are the ones that prefer to listen to a checklist, a to-do list. But yeah, the action involved. This is the task that you need to have done. So those listeners gravitate towards that message more. Analytical, analytical listeners tend to listen more when there's a lot of information, right? And they want all the details and so forth. So these are people who want to take in all the information. So as listeners, they tend to gravitate towards that kind of value. And last but not least, critical listeners. Critical listeners are the listeners that judge while they're listening. So, or make, or they question it as well. So as listeners, they want the person who's giving them a bunch of stuff for them to analyze it and so forth. They're not as in depth as analytical listeners, but they do want to listen to stuff so they can judge it or question it. Those are the four. All right. So in the chat, you can you give me a number. Relational orientated listeners are 1. Task orientated is 2. Analytical is 3. And critical listeners are 4. Those are the 4 options. Which one do you tend to gravitate toward more? I'm not asking for a miss. You got to choose you can only choose one number. So relational oriented is 1. Task oriented, by the way, that's feelings and emotion. Task oriented, listen for actions, 2. Analytical wants a lot of information, 3. Or critical wants information so they can question it and judge it. Which one are you? Let's see, we got a lot of 2s here. Task oriented, task. Well, that makes sense considering that you guys are on the Zoom call. You're like, I want to get this done. I don't want to wait till, I'm going to get this. If I have questions, I can ask. So yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. But you're a better listener if you're a mix of all of them. You're a better listener. All right. Last but not least, there's analyze and evaluate speeches. That is how we test you for listening. So every speech you have to analyze one student, evaluate them, and you do not. It's like the easiest 10 points. But what I look for is that you follow the instructions. So you're listening to me. That's very important. You listen to me. That's where most points are, if any real points are lost, is people who don't follow directions. And 2, by completing the task, you indicate that you listen to another student speak. Right? We'll cover that more in the speeches. Is there any questions on anything I covered in this slide? No, we're good? All right. Let's see. Let's see if we can go to another slide. Another screen. We're going to go over here to our Canvas. Oh, look, there's my Instagram up. Oh, look, it's my next comedy show, my next free comedy show in Burbank. Oh my goodness, it's like I'm advertising that's an accident. I did not mean to do that whatsoever. Oh, look, it's free. All right, enough of that. Yeah. I'm shameless plug. Shameless plug. Did I mention it's free? All right. Actually, it's a really nice place. So I've been looking I usually do my free shows are usually in Arcadia at a really nice place too. But I've been looking for a Hollywood place, and this place I saw it and I went upstairs to the space and I was like, oh my god, this is awesome. This place is awesome. Even if you don't go to the comedy show, that place in Burbank is a very nice restaurant. All right. Ooh. Okay, yeah, I'll put it up real quick. Someone asked me to put it back up. Here we go. Here it is. Move the screenshot real quick. There you go. I'm gonna put it down in 3, 2, 1. All right, and we're back. And you can follow me on Instagram. All right. Anyways, so I went back. I'm in our Canvas because we're going to cover the main points and the other parts of your outline, so you make sure it gets done. All right. Let's make sure I got this. By the way, my place is my office area is a complete mess. This door that's behind me is to like a back entrance exit, and I never use it, so it's always blocked off. And my project area is usually there. And right now I had to use this door because of construction outside. I hate it. Hate it. Like it's harshing my vibe. And all my projects are so long. And yes, that is the Toad hat from Mario. All right, I got what I needed. Okay, here we go. So what we're gonna do now is cover the other parts of the outline. And then we're gonna go back to the chapters and finish it up with plenty of time spare. Okay, so let's go ahead. Reminder to everybody, all your what am I talking about? All your important documents are found in files. So we're gonna go to files. Now your screen looks different than mine. I'm not in student view, I'm in my view, but it's essentially the same thing in the sense of where to find stuff. All right, and look, there you go. All the important documents. When we have the evaluation forms, it's going to be on here as well. So we'll go to outline. Go to outline. And we've already covered we already covered the introduction. So what we're going to do is cover the main points. And the main points are actually really easy because here's the one thing I want you to notice. They're all the same thing. All the same thing. You look at the main points, they're all the same thing. Main point summary, and then 2 subpoints. That's it. That's it. A lot of times what students do is, again, they think of the speeches they've given in the past and they apply that information. And what I want you to do is toss that stuff in the trash. It's trash now. We're learning the best way to speak, period. And the best way to do that is your speech really is the main points. The introduction is just setup, just setting you up. Your main points is where the speech is. That's if you have references, citation. You have a culture community requirement where you have to mention something about that you identify with the culture or community in your with you. You only have to do it in one of your main points, but it has to be in the main point. All right. So what is this main point I keep talking about? Well, these main points always start off with the summary, right? And the summary is like a quick explanation of what the main point's about, and that's it. And you usually preview, and you should preview what you're going to talk about. So, for example, my speech of being a film director, right? I look at main point 1, and I went into it and I started saying something like, growing up, remember in this speech, your main point 1 is about your past, your main point 2 is about your present, and your main point 3 is about your future. So I'm in my past, I'm talking main point summary. When I think about growing up, I think about the rough neighborhood I grew up in, where we had gangs and violence and drugs. It was chaotic. Movies became our escape, and for me, it was escapism to go and watch movies. We either did it in the local theater or at home on VHS. Boom, that's it. In about 2, 3 sentences, I just explained what I'm going to talk about. And then I only focus on 2 subpoints. What students like to do is, oh, wait. Whoever, has anyone ever made spaghetti? Not buy spaghetti. I'm talking about make spaghetti where you cook the pasta. Anyone done that in the chat? Or you can say yes. You can unmute and just say yes. Anyone make spaghetti? I don't think anyone has. All right, I used to make spaghetti. One of the things I've heard people say about making spaghetti and when you cook the pasta is that you throw it up against the wall and see if it sticks. Right? If you know what I'm talking about, that's something that people have said. Now, if you do that, it's unsanitary. But that's what students like to do. They just throw a bunch of information on the wall and hope it sticks. Like I might talk about my childhood. Here's a bunch of things from my childhood, and that's it. I've had students, they talk about being an immigrant, and then they list off a bunch of things about being an immigrant, and there's no focus, right? What you need to do as speakers is just take all that information that you could possibly say and put it in the 2 focus subpoints. So anyone want to guess? By the way, I previewed what the 2 subpoints are. Anyone want to guess in the chat or unmute and say? I'll say it again so you hear it. It might sound a little different because I'm just winging it. When I think about growing up, I think about the rough neighborhood I'm from, where we had gangs and violence and drugs and a whole lot of chaos that we would try to escape by going to the movies. Watching movies became a form of escapism. And we did that by going to the movie theater or watching them at home. So what are my 2 subpoints? Anyone want to guess in the chat? Or you can unmute if you want. I am really pale in this light. Look at me, so pale. Any guesses? All right. Movies, yeah, movies are escape, but I mentioned 2 things where I watch the movies. Any guesses? This is okay if you don't, because I'm introducing something kind of new. Wait. Oh, no, that's where we escaped from. So I was previewing it was at the very end when I talked about going to the movie theaters, or watching them at home, right? So my speech, subpoint A would be, remember I showed you how to write them, 2 basic short sentences. I would write 2 basic short sentences. My 1 sentence would be, because again, my basic short sentences would be something like, movie theaters became a mini vacation from the hood, right? Period. We would save up our money and take a bus or get a ride. Period. Right? Or I actually should flip the sentences. I should say we would save up our money and take a mini vacation to the movie theater. Period. Because it was a way for us to escape the neighborhood and all the problems that we had at home. Period. Actually, I just kind of said it how I would say in the speech. But I would maybe shorten it down a little bit. But that's it. That's all I did. Right? What I did was in subpoint A, I said the important thing, which was going to the movie theaters to escape. And then I explained why it was important. Right? That's all subpoints are. You say the one thing that you want people to know. Subpoint B, when we couldn't go to the movies, we would watch movies at somebody's house. Period. Right? And then I would say something like, they became the home movies became a refuge for us, because we would be off the streets at night watching a movie either on cable or VHS, and be away from those problems. Right? That's it. That's the whole thing, right? You preview one of your you preview what you're going to say, and then you say it with subpoints. Again, usually subpoints are, we got some students coming in all at the same time at the time. So they were the you say something important and then you explain why it's important. And then once you do that, then you have your whole main point right there. So I'm watching my clock. I actually have an old school wall clock that has a second hand on it, and I'm gonna try to time myself to do the main point in a minute. So I'm gonna start it at the 45. And look for my summaries and my 2 seconds. All right. When I think about growing up, I think about that rough neighborhood I grew up in. We had gangs, violence, drugs, and all this chaos that would happen on the streets. We would escape from that world by watching movies. Movies became our form of escapism, either by going to the theater or watching them at home. Let's talk about the theaters real quick. We would save up on money, right, on allowances, to take a mini vacation away from the neighborhood. It acted like we're getting away from the chaos, leaving it behind for that day in another part of Fresno. And then we also, if we couldn't save up our money, we would just watch movies at someone's home, either cable or VHS. It was a way for us, especially at night. We would get off the streets at night and watch movies so we can avoid those problems. That's it. I just did it. I did about a minute, 5 seconds. Less than a minute, 5 seconds. Right? That's it. I just did a main point. I said the main point summary, what I'm talking about, and then I focused on 2 things. The one thing you don't want to do is just list off a bunch of stuff, because that's chaos in itself, right? Let's continue this idea, and we're gonna go with main point 2 and main point 3. I'm gonna do these real quick. So main point 1 is the past. Main point 2 is the present. Main point 3 is the future. By the way, the future is 10 years from the end of your education, as stated in the description of the speech and so forth. So main point 2 would be something like something simple. What I'm doing right now is I'm getting my degree from school. There is an actual film degree where you can indicate that you're a director via a piece of paper, but it also takes a lot of classes and maybe some internships. Let's talk about the classes. You can say you're a director, but if you need more to it, and that's what this degree does. There are requirements like film history, critical film, reviews. There is film studies, and lots of different things, genres and time periods and so forth. It's an art, and every art has its degree, and film is one of them. Another thing I'm doing is I am applying for internships. We're in Los Angeles, and I'm hoping that by getting some hours in local film studios, I start the whole networking aspect of this industry. It's another way for me to get some knowledge in my current degree. A little over a minute, but I'm winging it. Same thing with the future. I see myself years from now in the middle of the film industry, right where I want to be, trying to make myself get known as a quality film director. And the best way for me to do that is by hitting the film festivals and working at a studio. When it comes to name recognition as film director, a lot of people get discovered at these film festivals. And then I don't have to make a whole movie. I could just make a short film, get some funding, maybe get produced by a smaller studio. But it's a way for you to get your name out there and for them to maybe earn some awards. And then the other thing that I'm going to be doing is I'm hoping to get hired with a major film studio. I can't be a film director tomorrow, but what I can be is an assistant. Maybe years after my education, I've already done my first film and working my way into becoming a well-known person in the studio system. There you go. I just did my main points. Any questions on anything I just did right now? Remember, when you write them up, summary, subpoint, and A and B, each of them get 2 basic short sentences. Any questions on anything you just saw? No. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to first pause the recording. All right, welcome back. We're going to be doing our participation now. Now, for those people who are watching this for the online content only option, the way it's going to work is pretty simple. In the replies, remember there's going to be 2 of these, so you got to do it for. I rather have one reply for both items. Makes my job easier. All right. So, and by the way, we're at individual now. Last week was group. If enough people participated last week, everyone gets 20 points. This one, for now on, for the rest of the semester, individual participation. So make sure you participate. What we're going to do today is I want you to think of, individually, I want you to think of your, those police sirens. I love it when they come down the street. They remind me of home, Fresno. Anyways, I actually do live on a very safe street because it's a thoroughfare. The police headquarters is right down the street. It's probably the ambulance. So, all right. Anyways, what we're gonna do is you're gonna think about a subpoint in one of your main points. It could be past, present, future. And what I don't want you to think about how you're going to say it exactly. I want you to just rough draft it. What I mean by it is, let's say you're talking about your past and you're talking about, like, let's say you're an immigrant, right? Or you're first gen, your parents were 0 gen. And so what you could do, maybe subpoint A or subpoint B, is one of the common things I've heard from students over these years. And I saw this all the time in the neighborhood I grew up in, not with just the Spanish speakers, but the Hmong speakers as well, is that the kids were translators. And so you would say something like, my parents did not speak any English, and I did. For the most part. And so I acted like a translator. And by being a translator for my parents, it helped me understand the community and the rest of the world around me, because I was translating for adults with other adults. Boom! That's what it is. I talked about the most important thing, which is being a translator for a parent. And then I talked about why it's important. Instead of just throwing a bunch of stuff out there about going, well, I was a parent, I was a translator, my parents had paperwork, I had to go to hearings. I mean, students they list off a bunch of things. When in reality, you just have to say really 2 things and explain why they're important. All right. So while I'm talking, I'm hoping someone you thought of those things, right? So for those in the Zoom, think of it. I'm going to keep talking. Think of it. Think about something in your speech you want to mention and then explain why it's important. That would be a subpoint. All right. So in the chat, and for the online content folks, what you need to do is write down just a brief sentence, what is important, and then in another brief sentence afterwards, explain why it's important. So 2 sentences worth of work. That's easy. Easy. 5 points. All right, let's. Ooh, did I lose a student? I think I might have lost a student. So in the class, just unmute when you're ready and tell me what you are thinking about. Something important, and then explain why it's important.
Hi.
Right, go. Who's this?
Kinshara. Sorry, I'm like sick. That's why I sound funny.
That's okay.
Um, so for a sub point of mine, I kind of want to, am I saying my sentence or am I saying what I'm going to talk about?
Oh wait, I think you're using someone else's Zoom, aren't you?
No, it's mine. I go by Kenny.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want me to change my name?
No, that's okay.
Okay.
And what's the last initial? D, right?
D, yes.
All right, I got it. All right, go for it. What is important?
So like growing up, I watched my grandparents struggle with their health, and they were constantly like taking many pills at a time, and oftentimes like they would forget why they were taking each pill, or they would forget to take the pill in general, which led to like a decline in their health.
That's all you need.
Oh,
You did exactly what I needed, which was
okay.
you did the very first thing, which was explain that you witnessed your grandparents with a lot of pills, and then you said the second thing, and that was important to you because you witnessed them misusing or not being able to use correctly the.
Oh, yes.
That's it. That's it. And then when you elaborate on your speech, you do whatever. All right. I marked you down
Okay.
as participating. Who's next? Who's next? Get those 5 points.
This is David.
I got you, David. Go for it.
Okay, so growing up, I have 6 uncles. They were all military, so I grew up a lot of manners and respect. So I think that's helped me as I've gotten older, just to have general common courtesy and respect.
There you go. So, by the way, that's a seldom used community reference, but military life is completely different than normal life. And so, but that's it. You said the most important thing. You had family in the military. Because of that important thing, you were brought up with learning a different respect. I don't know if you noticed, but while you were speaking, I was pointing to my Marine Corps cover for my dress blues right up there. That thing is old and it's falling apart. I have what else do I have? I have a couple other military things. Oh I'm not showing it, but my wall with some of my grandfather's artifacts, which is by the way, okay. Fun fact, real quick, and then we'll move on. Why? Hey, Kenny, don't write on the screen. That's funny though. Right, to change it? All right. Fun fact, you see these degrees here? These are 2 masters, 1 bachelor. They're in $1.50 Walmart frames. You can't see it. I won't show it. My honorable discharge is in a very, very, very nice frame from the military. All right. Anyways, who's next? Let's go. Anybody else? Get those 5 points.
Okay. So growing up, I had to watch my nieces and nephew for my older sister. So, and then that was important that so she can go to work and stuff. So that got me into child development, and that's how I got my teacher's permit because growing up watching my sister.
How old were you when you started watching the kids?
I was 9.
That works. And you can maybe don't say 9 because that is young.
Yes.
We don't want to talk about that one. But it's actually very good. So you would say, as a we'll take preteen, as being a young kid, I actually was tasked with watching the other kids. And then you explain why that's important to you. And that's a simple. All right, who's next? Get those 5 points. Anybody else? Get those 5 points. Going once.
Hi, this is Audrey. I
Okay.
would say like as a kid, it kind of was a dream to kind of like get into like, you know, being a doctor. But I would say I pretty much looked up to my aunt. She was in healthcare in a time of hardship in a third world country. So that kind of led me to seeking out healthcare and you know, be going to like, help out the community.
Yeah, and if you're using that for your personal journey, you don't have to say about being a dream doctor. You could just start off by saying, I had an aunt that was in the healthcare profession, and whatever it was done. And then you explain why that's important. Then you can say, oh, it was a dream of mine to follow in footsteps, and then also witnessing the third world country. Audrey, what's your last initial for your the first letter in your last name?
Oh, it's O.
Oh, thank you. All right. Anybody else going once?
I'll go next.
Okay, Monique, go ahead and share.
Just quick question. It's what we're talking about right now. It's one of the main points
It would,
of
it would
like
be it would be one of
what.
your sub points and a main point. So what you would do is, for example, I'm going to use Audrey's. Let's say that she was talking about her past, and so she talks about the influence of healthcare in the family as her main point as a kid, and then in sub point A, she says, "I had an aunt that was in the health profession." And
Okay.
so we're talking sub points.
Okay.
I'm trying to get people more focused in on sub points. So go ahead.
Okay. Um, Growing up, I was around a lot of like I grew up around a lot of like gangs and drugs and like violence, like just a lot of messed up stuff.
Mhm.
So seeing that like around my community and just like in my own life is what makes me want to do social work. Like it makes me want to help people in
Right.
crisis.
And so what you could do is saying, uh, in my neighborhood growing up, I saw a lot of people suffering through the ill effects of drugs and violence and gangs and so forth. And then that's the important thing. And then you can then elaborate and share that. That makes me want to get in. And that's why social work is so important to me. Because even as a kid, I was hoping that they would get help. There you go.
Okay. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it. Don't have to list off. Okay, thank you. You don't have to list off a bunch of information, folks. You just have to focus on two things: quality over quantity. All right. You guys did great. You guys did great. Let's go to move on. I'm going to talk about the transitions and the conclusion. So first things first, let's go over the transition. Now give me a moment. I'm going to write out something very detailed about the conclusion. Right? It's going to be very in depth. I know it's going to be on whiteboard, but trust me, it'll explain a lot. Right? Give me a moment. While I'm doing that, I will plug my next comedy show. It's free. Woo-hoo! Let's see. All right. I'm going to write this down. Why is this color not being good? There, that's better. Green works. This is why it's my favorite color. All right. All right. I did it. I wrote all the important stuff down. I know it's very detailed, so bear with me, okay? Give me a moment. That's it. Oh, and that looks bad. I'll do it like this. That looks bad. It's like this. It's the symbol. It's this. Why does it look bad? All right. All right, that's better. That's a little bit better. This is what we do with this symbol is during debate. When I was on debate, this symbol, the arrow with the circle going back, always an indicator of it that we're going back to where we started. Right, that was the symbol. Maybe I'm doing the symbol wrong. Maybe it's like this, and that works too. It's a symbol of it, the arrow going back to the center, right? And what I mean by that is simple. The conclusion is just a wrap up. That's it. It's just a wrap up. So it's actually very easy. It's about 30 to 45 seconds worth of words. So what you do is when you get to the end, all you do is say you know the preview main points that we covered on Thursday. You just say it in past tense. In my preview main points for being a film director, I'm going to tell you about the neighborhood I grew up in, then my degree, and then finally myself in the film industry. Review main points. I covered my rough neighborhood, then my degree, and finally where I will be in the film industry. Past tense. That's all you're doing. And you don't even have to go through the whole intro sections. There's only 3 of them. So you review main points and you restate your thesis, right? I'm going to tell you my journey to becoming a famous film director. Now in past tense. I told you about my journey on becoming a famous film director. Right? By the way, it works just like the thesis up there. You can have that second sentence. So I would say something like, I told you about how I'm going to become a famous film director. And then you say something, you can follow it up by saying, hopefully you're going to see my name in the bright lights, maybe winning an award someday for my work, and also making good money. Right? That's it. You're restating what you did before. And the memorable closer, don't try anything new. What you take is that attention getter that you use at the very beginning, and you put it at the end, but you do a little change to it. But before I can tell you how, I'm going to ask a very important question to the class who's in with us right now. How many of you, is there anybody who's good at making a sandwich or a hamburger? Anybody in the chat? You don't have to unmute. You can just mention, you can just say yeah. Anybody? Can I annotate? Ooh, look, I can do it too. Ooh. I can erase. Ooh, I can erase. Ooh, good thing I did that. All right. Pretty decent burgers. All right. Now, those who said that they are, if you want to unmute and share your sandwich or burger, what do you have on it? Anybody?
Like, how would you prepare it?
Yeah, what would you put? What's in your sandwich or burger?
Well, the ones that I like to make are like turkey burgers, and I usually do like mushrooms and like barbecue and mustard and lettuce, and I just call it a day.
That's good. That's good. Does the sandwich maker want to chime in? I'm making a sandwich after class. Anybody?
So on my burger, same. I use turkey burger and I do mayo, ketchup, mustard, but like honey mustard with lettuce, tomato, some purple green onions, just saute them, a little bit of bacon, some avocado on top, and a cheese.
A fun fact about me when it comes to burger, one of my favorite toppings is an egg. That's called my pack in the pounds burger. That is but my signature sandwich right now is I have for the spread is some kind of Bavarian mustard. It's a sweet mustard. If I don't have it, Dijon mustard's fine. The other bread gets basil, spreadable basil. And then I have blackened chicken and sprouts. I used to have cheese and other things, but I am actually trying to lose weight, so I'm actually cut some toppings off. But that's it. That's my burger. And by the way, it's on bagel. I choose bagel bread. I like bagels for my sandwiches. And that's my question. I think everyone who contributed right now, you use the same burger, top and bottom, right? You don't use different slices of bread. Is that a correct statement? Yes?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a correct statement. And that's the thing about this speech. When you wrap up your attention getter and your memorable closer, and it's the same topping, I mean, bread, if it's the same bread that encloses the sandwich or the burger, it gives your audience completion. It's very noticeable. Like, oh, this is how they started. This is how they're wrapping up. It's a very effective technique. This is like super. It's not advanced, but it's like if you can do it, it's super easy to do. But if you can do it, it makes it sound really great. So here's what I mean. For example, my attention getter for my being a film director speech is, and you ever find yourself going down a long road where the destination is so far away, while you're driving, you start getting distracted as the trees and buildings start passing by, right? That's my attention getter, an analogy about the future. My memorable closer, the next time you find yourself driving down that long road, maybe because you know where your destination ends, just like mine, you won't get distracted by those trees and buildings as they pass by. That's it. You take your attention getter and you past tense it like everything else, and you have an effective closure. That's it. Any questions on the conclusion? Any questions whatsoever? No? All right, we're going to go to the transitions now. Transitions actually have an official term. I'll cover that in class, maybe next week or something like that, or maybe on Thursday. There's how we get when we get to it. But it's essentially, it's the preview and review main points, and your transitions are all the same. When you write them up, by the way, preview, review, main points, and your transitions, one sentence. One sentence. All the other parts are two basic short sentences. But transitions, preview, review, main points, one sentence on your outline. And that's easy. Preview main points. I'm going to talk about the neighborhood, my rough neighborhood I grew up in. The degree, and then finally where I see myself in the film industry, right? Review main points. I just talked about my neighborhood, my degree, and then finally where I see myself in the film industry. One sentence. Transitions are even easier. It's one sentence, and the sentence is defined by the two, because you notice the transitions are in between the parts. And so all you're doing is saying, I just finished this part, and I'm going to go to this part. A to B directions. A to B directions. I just told you about my journey. Now let's talk about that neighborhood. I just told you about that neighborhood. Let's talk about my degree. I just told you about my degree. Let's talk about the film industry. Told you about the film industry. Let's go ahead and wrap up this speech. That's it. That's what a transition is. We're going to do a little exercise with the class on Thursday, but that's a transition. A to B directions, right? You're telling your audience, I just was here, now I'm going to go over here. Because that's what the review, preview, main points, and transitions are. It's directions. Give directions. That's it. That's why I call the preview of main points a roadmap. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Right? It's a roadmap to your speech. And all the transitions are saying is, we just were here, now we're going here. Any questions on the transitions? Again, if you're watching this at home on your own time, if you have questions, save them for the class on Thursday. Nope, we're good. All right, let's finish up some chapters and then we'll do one more participation and we'll call it a night. Okay, let's see if there's any other artifact. Ooh, you guys want to see a cute minion? I love the Despicable Me movies. I just like the Minions, even though the Minion movies are not that great. My office is artifacts from my past and things that make me happy. Because if I'm working, I need something to keep me happy. That's a good philosophy of life. All right, let's get going. We're going to share. We're going back. We're going back to the chapters. We covered 5. Let's get this stupid thing out. Let's go to 6. All right. Chapter 6 is about analyzing your audience. All right. We're going to be talking about some sensitive stuff here today with this chapter. It's about analyzing your audience and so forth. And there's a couple ways to do it. The first way is actually one I don't recommend, and I tell you not to do it at all. All right. But the other one is, and there's chapter 6 actually had 2 slides, but we're going to just cover one today. All right. First one is these 2 are might be on the text. All right. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Open-ended questions. Open-ended questions are questions where you can put any answer in there. Right? Any answer whatsoever. Right? When you've taken a test in the past, anyone have any idea what might be considered an open-ended question where you could put anything in as an answer? Give me some examples from a test you've taken in the past. Anybody? You can type it in the chat. I'll read it off in the chat. Any example? You can write anything you want on a test. What test questions are like that? Nobody? I'll give you the answers. It's essay questions or questions about paragraph questions. And you can write whatever you want. Even fill in the blank, right? If you know those tests where they'll have a sentence, and then all of a sudden there's a blank and then there's more to it, right? Well, that little blank right there, you could put whatever word you want, right? That's an open-ended question. Open-ended questions are where you can put anything in there. Anyone have any idea what a closed-ended question is? These are questions that you have very limited options. Very limited options. What kind of tests are that you have taken that are has closed-ended questions? They actually have names to it. Fill in the blank, hint, hint, nudge, nudge is an example for open-ended questions. It's an example of a closed-ended question. Oops, someone said it in the chat. Multiple choice, that is correct. Multiple choice questions, right? True or false, right? Or you have, even when you were a kid, or even when you were in school and you had a list of terms here, or you had a list of phrases, and then the terms are over here and you had to draw a line. That's closed-ended question too. You're limited in options. Both types of questions you as public speakers should not do at all, ever. Actually, even if you're advanced, you should never, anytime. In comedy, we have a thing called crowd work, and yeah, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. I'll explain why later. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Audience analysis, right? Audience analysis, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. It's whenever you take the information you have on the audience and you figure things out. It's when you, and by the way, here's a word repeated from another chapter, ethically. When you ethically take information about the audience and you analyze it. So it's whenever you gather information about an audience, right? Who you're speaking in front of. Your audience is super easy for your speeches. It's other college students. That's it. It's pretty simple. Right? But you know, I've given public speeches in so many public speaking speeches in so many different types of rooms. that it's always good to know who you're speaking in front of. All right. Audience adaptation. Here's another one that has ethics in it, but this one is more practical. It's when you adapt ethically to the audience that you're speaking in front of, right? Remember the example I gave about going to these schools in these neighborhoods with gangs in LA, and then me, the whitest dude in a 5 mile radius, whenever I walk onto a campus, is saying, "Oh, I grew up in a similar type neighborhood," right? I start giving examples. I'm giving honest, truthful examples. Because if I try to say, "Oh, I know what you're going through," and I have no idea about it whatsoever, that's unethical, and that's not good audience adaptation. Audience adaptation is when you are using, you are adapting ethically and honestly. All right. You see what I mean there? So you can adapt when you have information about the audience, but make sure you do not do it unethically. Demographics. Demographics are those little terms that we have for identifiers, right? They can be biological, social indicators as well. There's tons of them. And I'm going to introduce you to a new one that's not in the book. Your book covers a lot of them. There's only a few of them that are actual terms. Like age is covered in the book, but it's not a term. But there's a lot more. There's this thing called group membership that's not a term, but like Democrat, Republican, those are demographics, but they're group membership. They're social indicators, right? Left, right, social indicators, demographics. We're only going to cover a few. And by the way, you might hear things you don't like. So apologies, or actually not apologies, it's a warning. So the very first one is controversial right now. Gender. Gender, when we use the phrase gender, we mean gender identity. It is a person's perceived perception of themselves when it comes to their gender. I know that's controversial right now, but it's really not, because in history, there's been roles for people with different identities of gender. And what I mean by that is, someone who's a young lady or woman who is like a tomboy, right? Masculinity on that side, or an effeminate man has femininity on that side. That's it. That's all it is, right? And people fall on different things all the time. And it's like I said, it's not controversial. In all these different cultures, there's been roles for people like that. And we just recently had Hollywood produce a movie about the female warriors of Africa, right? Historical context has been, who do you think played the women in the Shakespearean theater? Remember you read about Shakespeare in high school, and all the actors in Shakespeare's time were men, including the female parts? Well, it was usually the feminine men, right? When Marines went off to Afghanistan, they were told about a certain job in tribal communities for those types of guys, right? And the same thing, the Philippines, the Aztec culture, lots of different cultures around the world where they had, different people on different gender identities and effeminate and so forth. And I say, don't ever judge. One of the most effeminate men I've ever met in my entire life is married to one of the most beautiful women I've ever met in my entire life. So gender identity, gender is fluid. And the only difference now is that we're just being respectful. So don't stress about it, and don't be judgmental about it, because it's been around forever. It just by the way, the people who message about the different identities, they're not good at messaging. All they need to say is, we're just being respectful. That's it. We're not pushing their agenda. And by the way, take it from a man whose first name is Leslie. This is something that is not something to stress about or get angry about. All right. I say that because it's my thing I talk about. Sex. No, not that. No, we're not talking about that. That's a different class. I think psychology covers that. That has that class. But sex, we're talking now. We're talking biological. Now we're talking biological. We're talking what people are born as, or what, and they could physically change. I mean, they, and this is another thing as well. When people are like, "What is a woman?" or a man, and so forth. One of the things I've heard one time was they said a woman is someone who can have a baby, and that's the only type of woman there is. And I thought about somebody from my past who I was very close to, and she couldn't have a baby. She was born, she's a woman, biologically born woman, all that stuff. But, she was infertile. She couldn't carry a child. Did that make her less? That's the thing. That's why we don't do this kind of debate stuff in these classes. We're being respectful to others and so forth. There are people who are born with with different parts, right, of the same of the different genders and so forth. And there's a phrase for them. We don't use that phrase that much anymore because it's considered not the best phrase. There's there's lots of different things. People can change their gender as well through surgery, all that stuff. But we're just being respectful. But when it comes to sex, we're talking the biological side, right? Culture. Culture is a term, and we're going to talk about it later as well. Culture, well, we'll talk about it now. Culture is all the stuff that is included inside a culture. We're talking the religion, we're talking all that stuff, language, all that stuff. It falls under culture. Culture is a testable question. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Right? Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Culture should also be put at the end of a term, a demographic, to indicate that there is depth to it. I'll say it again. Culture is a term that should be added to the end of a demographic to indicate there's depth to there. So I'm gonna give you an example. Mexican American here in Los Angeles. Let me hear you. Say, give me some kind of positive reaction or a yes in the chat or so forth. Right? Born, raised, or immigrated, whatever. Mexican American in Los Angeles. Let me hear you. Who falls under that demographic in here? I know this is a small group. Anybody? You can say yes, or you can unmute and say yeah. There you go. There you go. So I grew up in Fresno, California, around the Mexican American community up there. Does anyone think the Mexican American community in Fresno has the same experiences as the Mexican American community in Los Angeles? What's the short answer? Yes or no? Well, I don't see any answer, but the general answer is no. The general answer is no. And the reason why is this. One, obviously, Los Angeles is much, much bigger, but there's a lot more different influences, right? In Fresno, in the Latin community in general, there's no diversity. It's Mexican, Mexican American. There may be little of others. Here in Los Angeles, more diversity in the Latin community. So Mexican Americans have a lot more different groups in the same Latin community, right? Fresno, we're deeply connected. The Mexican American community is deeply connected to farm workers. Agriculture is huge. Even Fresno's fifth largest city in California. But I grew up around agriculture, even though I grew up in the city, in the urban part, of it. But it's deeply connected. Same thing where I live right now. I live in Alhambra. If I walk out this door, I'm in Alhambra, right? I'm in Alhambra right now, but you know what I mean. Chinese American community. Did you guys know that from Alhambra to Diamond Bar is the largest Chinese community outside of Asia? All those Baldwin Park, why am I forgetting Baldwin Park, Arcadia, all that down that way. Largest community outside of Asia, Chinese community outside of Asia. You think it's the same Chinese American community in San Francisco? No, not at all. And Chinese American community in San Francisco, deeply rooted with the community that first came here with when the Pacific Railroad was constructed, right? So when you say Chinese American culture or Mexican American culture, you're indicating that there's a lot more to it. Just because a lot of times people judge things and say, "Oh, yeah, they're African American, they're like this, they're the same, not same experiences," right? As a white guy, as a white male, my experience is a lot different from where I grew up than someone who grew up in the country or in the mountain or in the desert or in the suburbs or anything like that, right? So our experiences shape a lot. And so putting male culture, female culture, gay culture, straight culture, Islamic culture, Christian culture, it's just a way to show respect because there's a lot of depth to those things. Do we understand that? So if I ask you a question, which word do you add at the end of demographics to indicate their depth? The answer is culture. Ethnicity. Ethnicity is where you're talking about everything that is like connected with nationality and so forth. I also put in skin tone in that because I think ethnicity is a better way to say different things, right? So when we're talking African American, white American, Chinese American, that's connected with ethnicity, right? Ethnicity is a much better term than the next one, which is race. I think race is antiquated. And the best example of that is Latin. What race is Latin, folks? Right? What race is Latin, folks? Any guesses? And by the way, if you say like Mexican or something like that, that's ethnicity. That's ethnicity. Any guesses on what race? There is in all my classes, people said there is that some will say they're white, some say they're indigenous, but the mix. If you guys don't know, Mexican comes from the root comes from the word meso, which is mix, and that's the whole starting of that. And so yeah, so race to me is antiquated because of the vibrant and very large Latin community, the mixed community. That is, of the Americas, right? By the way, I saw World Cup gear today at Costco again, and I was just like, so sad. We're gonna skip ethnocentrism and we're gonna go to social economics. We're gonna go back to ethnocentrism because it's a word on the test, but social economics, hint, nudge, nudge. The most important of these terms because it's the easiest one to connect with people. Social economic status is obviously anything to do with wealth, anything that has to do with money. We're talking occupation, education, income. We're talking ownership. We're talking these type of things. That's social economic status. Some people make a mistake and say language is a part of it. Language is a cultural thing. It's an ethnicity thing. It is not social economic status. So you might get a question on the test that says, which of these is not a social economic? And usually the answer is language. But anything that has to do with money is social economics. Poor, rich, middle class, any of that stuff, social economics, right? If you have a bachelor's, a master's, a PhD, you're more likely to make better money in the United States, or actually around the world as well. That's social economics, right? Anything with that, and the reason why it's so important as well is because we could connect a lot easier through economic issues. When I talk about growing up poor, it doesn't matter if you're white, black, brown, whatever. There is no prejudice in poverty, meaning that poverty can hit all groups, middle class, everything. We all have to deal with that stuff. All right. The last term is ethnocentrism. That term refers to your it refers to when you feel your ethnicity is superior to others, right? When you feel so, and by the way, ethnocentrism should be used for all demographics. When you feel your group is superior to others, right? There's nationalists for Christians, Muslims, Buddhists have nationalists, Hindus have nationalists. But ethnocentrism is when you feel your group is, and it's commonly obviously associated with ethnicity, when it's superior. And I have a little caveat on that. In this class, we talk about a culture community reference. If it's a positive influence, don't be ashamed to say it's a positive influence. The problem is when you take a step up and you say it's better than everybody else. You understand the difference? Give me a thumbs up if you understand the difference, or just say yes if you understand the difference between saying you're superior and just saying it's a good example. That way I also know that you guys are still here. Thank you. There you go. Yeah, and it's something like listen, I speak German. I've lived in Germany a bunch of times. And I'll tell you right now, that history is what it is. But I'm gonna tell you right now, I think I think Germans are a good example of how we should teach history, because they talk about everything. So I don't say they're superior, I say they're a good example, right? Mexican citizens, did you know on average Mexican citizens know their history more than the average US citizen know their history? I wish we would use Mexican citizens as an example when it comes to history. See the difference there? Good examples are perfectly fine to mention. Just don't say it's superior when it comes to like ethnicity and demographics. Right. I have one more word to add. And that is geography. Oh, I'm going to annotate. Let's see if I can, how good my writing will be. Here we go. Ready? Let's see. Oh my God. So geography. So I had this professor. See, I'm so bad. All right. I had this professor in University of Oklahoma, my first master's degree, right? Geography. All right. All right. Anyways, I had this professor from Africa, and one of my favorite professors of all time, one of my favorite teachers of all time. And he had like 4 passports and amazing, but he took this African development. He's just one of these experts on Africa. And he said that one of the things that people don't understand is the geography. The earth plays an important part in the shaping of Africa and other parts of the world. And I was like, oh my God, that was great. And then you think about it, that's the same thing with all of us. Our geography, and it's not just like the shape of the earth, because he was talking about the lack of mountain ranges in Africa. And but think about this for a second. If you grow up in the city, like downtown LA, that's a different experience than growing up in the suburbs or growing up in like the country or the mountains. You know what I mean? There's differences from that experience. And it's not extensively social economics. We were talking about this today. I was talking about this with another teacher. Do you know that Los Angeles is the most segregated city in the United States? Right? In the chat, this is going to be controversial. In the chat, where do you find my fellow white people? Type in the chat. Where do you find my fellow white people at? I'll read it out loud. Let's have fun. Where are my fellow white people at in Los Angeles? Don't say anything inappropriate. In the Los Angeles area, I should say. What communities? Where's the white people in the communities? I'm not going to get mad. Pasadena, yep, Beverly Hills, there you go. We're at Pasadena, Beverly Hills. I found out all the cops live in Simi Valley. So Simi Valley is a lot of white people. What's the most famous of the places? Probably Orange County, right? Where do I find African American? Seal Beach. Where do I find African Americans in LA? What parts of LA? I found out about Altadena, South LA, South Los Angeles, South Central, and not just all of South Central, certain parts of South Central. I'm in Watts right now, and most of my students in Watts are from our Latin, Inglewood. Yeah. I didn't know about Altadena until the fires, and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I was so close to African American community. And of course Latin, where we find Mexican American, where is the biggest? I mean, we could say East LA. Anybody else? Give me a shout out to Latin folks, Mexican American, Mexican. Where do we go? Where do we go? Huntington Park. Southgate. So you see they're super segregated, right? In Fresno, which is a fifth largest city, but it's still nothing close to LA's size. So if you want to go to another community that's not your group, it's a drive. It is a drive to get there. Oh, by the way, Asian American, Chinatown, Little Tokyo, and of course where I live in Alhambra. That's why I didn't mention it, because I mentioned it earlier. But in Fresno, it's 10 minutes. It's 10 minutes. It's a different life. So geography plays, our experiences, where we grew up, it completely shapes us as well. So that would be under like group membership. All right. Any questions on the terms? I'm watching the time. Any questions on the terms? All right. Analyzing your audience information. So the reason why you should know all this stuff is because it's important, because when you analyze the audience, if you have some ideas about who they are, it's gonna be great. First off, never ask questions. Never ask questions to your audience ever, because this is the main reason why you risk them taking over your speech, right? If you ask an open-ended question, you're giving them carte blanche to say whatever they want and keep talking. It's one of the worst things you could do is ask your audience a question, even if it's closed-ended question, and you say yes or no. How do you feel about our current governor? Like, do you agree with our current governor? And someone could go, yeah, maybe, right? And you can't trust them to say in a timely manner. Even raising hands, asking people to raise your hand. Don't ask them, because you'll get, maybe you get a bunch of people doing this, right? But then you get the person who's like, so don't ever ask your audience questions. Never do it, never do it, never do it, never do it. Only well-trained individuals can get away with that, right? You see me do it in class, training, in time, time and effort. But the best way is to understand who your audience is. So demographics helps you a lot. We'll talk about it more with the second slide, but it helps a lot. You know, you're going to be talking to a group that's predominantly Latin American, or if you're talking to a group that is Christian or exclusively Christian or whatever, right? You're talking to the GSA, Gay Straight Alliance. You're like, okay, this is a group that is more accepting to all different folks. If you're speaking in front of a Democratic club or a Republican club, or anarchist, I don't understand anarchist clubs. How can you be against society but form a club? I'm against organization, but we're going to make a club, right? So it's good to know who you're speaking in front of. Demographics usually fall onto two different categories. Biological in nature, now we're talking biological sex, ethnicity with the skin tone, age, these are all different things. Social indicators, right? And then, by the way, your book and I agree on this very, very, it's important to understand this. Social economics, social indicators, religion. By the way, how many of you were born into a religion? Just say yes in chat if you were born into religion. Or you can unmute and say, yeah, me. Right? It's a common thing that people say they're born into religion. You're born into it, but the fact of the matter is it's a social indicator, right? Here's the controversial one. Here's something that's controversial I'm about to say. Sexual orientation, gay, straight, so forth. It's a biological indicator. I know there are people, maybe even in this class, maybe in the Zoom right now, who's like, no, that's not. My religion says different. I understand that. But science has shown that there's differences genetically. And then also, as someone who had dear friends over my many years in this world, who will say that it's one of the hardest lives to live, and then it would be much easier if they're straight, but they can't. I had a dear friend of mine, he's no longer alive. He said he was in politics. He said the two things that hurt him working in politics, he didn't play golf and he's gay. So sexual orientation falls under biological. Right? You can have difference of opinion, but you're not them. We're being respectful. Impact on speaker and audience. First off, your audience will enjoy the fact that they're recognized. I was teaching in a class at Cal State LA, and I was speaking about growing up around that Asian community that I told you nobody knows about. I had a student in the back of the room go, "Yay!" And I'm like, "What?" And I talked to the student. He goes, "I'm from that community. I'm from so and so place, and no one ever knows who my people are." He was so happy in that moment. Being recognized and it makes people respect you. It gets more favorable, and that's the impact on speaker. Forget about the greater good things. Forget about that stuff. The reason why we're inclusive in this class and in all your speeches, no matter what class or not, is you want to get as many people on your side as possible. If you cut off people, you're cutting off a group of people that you might be able to sell things to, or might be coming on board to whatever you want. Right? No matter how right wing the Republicans are, they're going to always have a gay Republican group. It's called log cabin Republicans. No matter how far left the Democrats are, they're going to always have a Catholic or religious or even a pro-life contingent, because the pro-life movement, one of the original starting points were hippies, right? So if you're okay with other people, it's best for you. Forget about everyone else. It's best for you because it helps you get your stuff across, right? Is there any questions about anything that I covered today in this slide or in the class in general? We're doing a participation right now. It's a super easy one. All right. So what we're gonna do right now, and I'll while I'm talking, I want you to start doing it. I want you to write down, not in chat, like scratch paper if you have it. If you memorize it, that's fine. Just a couple, let's say five demographics that represent you. It could be biological in nature, or it could be social in nature, right? It doesn't have to be anything that you see on the list. It could be anything else. The only thing I ask of you is if the demographic has a story to it, right? Because let's be honest, there's a lot of demographics that are pretty boring. Like me, a lot of my major ones are pretty boring. There's no struggle there, right? Straight white male, right here. This guy right here, straight white male. There's not that many stories there. So, by the way, while I'm talking, in the start thinking about which five that you want to say. But there is a lot of ones that do have a story there. So I'll cover my five. One of them is Unitarian Universalist. That's my religion. That's people. I always have to explain that one. I grew up poor, right? Grew up poor, rough neighborhood. That social economics. That's where I'm from. I always blue collar. Let's see. Military life. Military life. Let me use this hand instead because of my one finger doesn't work that way. Military life, right? I was served in the military. By the way, military life also counts for people who have immediate family in the military, right? Immediate family. Let's see. I speak multiple languages, right? Sprechen Sie Deutsch? Comprendo Sie? Right? So I speak multiple languages, or I could say I lived in other parts of the world, which is true. And then my last one that has a story to it. I have indicators here. Oh, but by the way, you don't have to share anything that you don't want to share, but I'm comfortable sharing with it. Mental health. I've been diagnosed with depression. So there you go. There's my five. There's a story to each of them. You don't have to say the stories, just tell me your five. If you're watching this online, same thing with you. No, you don't have to say anything that's the thing, but write down on the online reply 5 demographics, right? If you want to throw culture at the end of the word, right? I could talk about Unitarian Universalist culture. You don't have to, but type in 5 demographics that represent you. All right, who wants to go first in the thing? And you're gonna have to unmute to you don't have to turn on the camera. Don't have to turn on the camera.
I can go first.
Okay, I'm gonna get the participants out so I know who's talking. Okay. All right, go for it.
I come from a low-income community. That's one of them. I was a personal trainer for about 2 years.
So we say athlete culture. There you go.
Okay, athlete culture.
Mm-hmm.
I was a caregiver for my grandma starting in 2016, and I still do that today.
Mm-hmm.
UCLA graduate, and I struggle with PCOS.
There you go. That's all you need to say right there. There's 5. Boom, right there. You don't have to go into detail. That's just 5. There you go. All right. And there's lots of different ones that people always mention, immigrant status and things like that as well. Who's next? I'm marking you down for your individual for today. So you have 10 points for today. Who's next?
I'll go next.
All right, go for it. The 5.
Income, like I come from a low income community.
There you
go. My household, I'm a single parent.
And by the way, that covers people who are also raised by single parents as well. Go for it. Keep going.
I'm Hispanic.
There you go. Latin community. There you go. And actually, that also covers Spanish speakers as well, because Hispanic actually refers to Spanish speakers. Right? What do you got?
And then I'm a college student.
I got Jake.
Jordan.
Education.
And I live in Boyle Heights.
I got
so my geographic location.
Oh, hey, Boyle Heights, an urban area. All right, and that is wait, who's the little one? What's the name of the little one?
Jordan.
Jordan. Hold on, Jordan. I can't relate to you.
He's so dirty.
I'm not a kid anymore, but I used to be one. Look at that. That's me as a kid. There you go.
Oh my God.
Playing soccer. All right. Who's next? Let's go. Who's next? Get those 5 points. Get 10 for the day.
Okay, this is David. I'll go. Okay, so demographics. Like I mentioned, a military background.
Mm-hmm.
Low income. Grew up low income. Christian religion.
Yeah.
What else?
By the way, atheism also counts, or agnostic also counts as religion for people. Just FYI.
Would an entrepreneur be?
Yeah, you can say if you're already a business owner, for example, or you'll just say yes for now. But yes.
Okay, and Male Hispanic?
Right. I think, or just Latin in general, just Latin.
Okay,
Or
Latin.
Latino, yeah. I mean, that's something we talk about in intercultural because we talk about in my intercultural class, we talk about machismo.
Uh-huh.
All right, there you
All
go.
right.
There's the 5 right there, right? By the way, business owner would be social economics. All right, the other 2, you want to go?
Yeah, I'll go. I grew
Okay,
up in a
Diana, go for it.
I grew up in a two-parent household.
Mhm.
Income, I would want to say, working class. My parents owned a couple properties.
Mm.
Um, I grew up Catholic. I actually went Catholic school.
Okay.
I'm
All right.
full-time
I'm
at
hiding my ruler so you don't get flashbacks.
I'm full-time at I work full-time at Los Angeles Unified School District.
No, I'm
And
sorry. I say that because I work with
right.
LA Unified. Yes.
And I have 2 associate degrees.
Education. There you go. There you go. That's it. You know, Joanna, if the strike happened, I'd be like, I don't know which side to root for. I don't like either of you.
Right.
I'm like, I support the strike, but I don't like you guys either. All right. Anyways, and last person, you want to go?
Yeah. So, grew up in a underserved community. I'm a single mom. I'm a
Mhm.
student. I work in health services,
Mhm.
and I grew up in a Christian home.
There you go. And you know, the healthcare one is a very good one because healthcare workers suffered so much through COVID. It's something I used to talk about when we came back from COVID. Healthcare workers, not just with the deaths and the illness, but the mental health crisis that they had, and some of them went to early retirement and have permanent issues because of it. So that's why I always say if you're a nurse, you're going to automatically get hired. But that's a story there. So you guys knocked it out of the park. I'm glad that you joined today because you helped other students as well. I'm gonna go off the key. I'm gonna turn off the camera right now. Let's see, stop recording. So online people follow the directions and all that stuff. And